jail, we didn't have enough money to study Islam, so I'm basically an idiot, I don't know how to talk about it. Well, if this is fake humility, if you don't know how to talk about this subject, why would you even talk? So don't say this at the beginning of your talk. This long introduction about how miserable you are and how ignorant you are because you think this will give them the impression that you are humble. Don't do it because you are shooting yourself in the foot, right? You have to have a lot of wisdom, and this will help you to choose the topic, the style of your talk, and how to be able to talk to your audience. And they say that hikmah basically means that you say the right thing to the right people at the right time in the right way. This is wisdom. This is what wisdom means in Islam. And also to be quick-witted, to be able to, yes. And maybe it will come back. Maybe from here. Yeah, maybe it will come back, inshallah. Some people are, subhanAllah, they are gifted. They can talk. And no matter how hard a question you give them, alhamdulillah, they come up with an excellent answer. I think I gave the story before of the story that happened to Al-Mutawakkil. He was Khalifa. So what happened? One of the assistants of Al-Mutawakkil got sick. So Al-Mutawakkil, who was a Khalifa, he went to visit his sick assistant. So while they were waking up the sick assistant, Al-Mutawakkil, the Khalifa, saw the son of the sick assistant sitting in the living room. So he said, okay, let me ask this guy a couple of questions. He was like 6, 7 years old. So he said to the kid, what is more, have you ever seen anything more precious than my ring? He had like a diamond ring. So he says, have you ever seen anything more precious than this diamond ring? So the kid said, yes. So the Khalifa was like taken aback. What is this? What is more precious than my ring? He said, your finger is more precious than your ring. He said, MashaAllah, this is an excellent answer. Then he said, I'm going to get him this time. He said, which house is much better for you? Your house or the palace of the Khalifa? My palace is better or the house of your father is better? So he said, this is very easy. Now because you are in our house is better than your palace. But when you go to your palace is going to be better than our house. فَأَمَرَ أَنْ يُمْلَأَ فَاهُ دُرًّا. He ordered his guards to fill his mouth with diamonds because he was so eloquent. One time, George Bernard Shaw, I think he was Irish or Scottish. He's a very famous writer. Yeah. So one time he was having a debate with politicians because they were talking about the authors and writers. They are not getting enough support from the government. So this man, I think he was a politician, and he said, you know what? We should work to build more slaughterhouses to provide meat for the people. This is much better than supporting authors and writers because writing is not a good thing. So George Bernard Shaw told him, you know what? Do you know that dogs think the same way, that meat is more important than books? You know, it's the same thing. Don't shoot the messenger is when you tell the people up front that whatever opinion I'm telling you is not actually my opinion. I quoted this from someone. This is from Quran, this is from Sunnah, this is from this book. You give your references, especially in controversial issues. Also, if you want to be an effective speaker, if you want people to listen to you, you have to practice what you preach. You see, if you tell them, brothers and sisters, if you smoke, you will be an idiot. You smoke every day. Wallahi, nobody will listen to you. One time, Imam Abu Hanifa, people came to, he was a big scholar, so people came to him and said, "Ya Imam," the slaves came to him and they said, "Ya Imam, we want you to give a talk about slavery and we want you to encourage people to free the slaves because this is a good thing in Islam." So he said, "Inshallah." So next Jum'ah they came, they were excited, they invited all the slaves, he's going to give a talk and tonight we will be free. Alhamdulillah. So Imam Abu Hanifa said, "Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, inshallah today we are going to speak about the month of Sha'ban." They're sitting like this. They said, "Okay, no problem. Maybe next khutbah he will talk about slavery." Then he started the khutbah. "Assalamu alaikum. Inshallah today we will talk about fada'il, the importance of the month of Ramadan." I said, "What is this?" It was Ramadan time. Then they said, "Maybe next week or the week after. Assalamu alaikum. Today we're going to talk about the importance of Laylatul Qadr." What is this, man? So eventually they were fed up, they came to him. And the fourth time, he actually gave a talk about slavery and we have to free the slaves, it is not good, and they're human beings like us and all these things. So they said, "We waited for a whole month for you to give the talk. And everything you said was from Quran and Hadith. It was not rocket science. You just gave the talk from Quran and the Sunnah. What took you a whole month to give a talk?" He said, "Because I didn't have a slave. I waited so I can raise enough money to buy a slave, then free my slave, then I can come and give a very effective talk about freeing the slaves because I just did it myself. But if I give a talk about freeing slaves, then the people say, what does he know about freeing slaves? He never freed a slave in his life." And this is why when I give the khutbah, people now are going to follow my example because I just did it myself. Also, if you talk about an old subject, try to revitalize the subject by connecting the subject to our realities in this life. Because some of the brothers, Alhamdulillah, they come to the masajid and everything. They are excellent brothers mostly. They make a lot of sacrifices. They travel for many days. But they always talk about Iman and Yaqeen, about abstract subjects. But here, we need to hear talks about drugs. We need to hear about children. We need to hear about abusing homes. We need to talk about the different things that are affecting us and our lives and our families here in this country. Iman and Yaqeen is good, but how can you translate this into practical solutions in our lives? Right? Also, make sure you record your khutbah and listen to your khutbahs, because when you are talking, sometimes you make mistakes and you don't realize. It's a good thing when you ask a lot of brothers to come to you after the khutbah and take notes. If you make a mistake in grammar, if you say something that was incorrect, to come to you and to correct you. Because when you talk, you are busy talking. Sometimes you say things and you're not paying attention, you make a mistake. Like one of the brothers, I was leading Taraweeh and Tahajjud, so I got tired, so I told him, you're gonna pray with tonight, you will make dua in Ramadan after Taraweeh. So he made the dua, and in the dua he said, Allahumma la tad'a lana fi hadha al-yawm al-'azim dhanban illa ghafarta, and at the end he said, wala mayyitan illa shafayta. He says, "Oh Allah, don't leave any dead person today, any sinful Muslim without forgiving them, and don't leave any dead Muslim without giving them recovery." Usually, you don't leave a dead person without forgiving them and a sick Muslim without giving them recovery. So he confused. He said, a dead person without giving them recovery. He is dead. What kind of recovery are you talking about? But he was confused. He didn't realize it, so we corrected him after the talk nicely. So listening to feedback, and it's a good thing when people present to you your mistakes. Because if you make a mistake, nobody's talking to you, or maybe they talk about you behind your back, this is not going to help you. but you should be open to feedback from the people, and this will help you to improve. The difference between a lecture and khutbah, usually you have a limited time, you choose a topic relevant to the time or the community. The good thing about khutbatul Jum'ah especially, and this is something you don't find in general lectures and stuff, in Jum'ah khutbah, the most important thing about Jum'ah khutbah is you have a guaranteed audience no matter how miserable you are as a speaker. They have to come to you. But if you go to Prague to give a talk and they don't like you, nobody will come, right? But Jum'ah, they have to come or they will be sinful, right? So you have a guaranteed audience. Whether you give a khutbah or a talk, you have to start big. By this they mean it is better to attract people's attention when you start by giving a beautiful story at the beginning or giving a very interesting statistic about something. This will make people listen to you. They want to understand, hear what you have to say because you started big. You spoke about something important. And finish clean. By finishing clean, you can sum up your talk in a story, or you can give them a summary of what you said or interesting things about the subject matter. Also, a very important technique when you give a talk, whether you give a talk or a khutbah or you are presenting the people, what they call the fan factor. Not this fan, but the other one, the regular one. You see how a fan works? This is what the Prophet ﷺ did when he gave a talk. قالوا كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يقبل على الناس بوجهه. When the Prophet ﷺ gave a talk, he always turned around and looked everyone in the eye. So much so that the people would think that he is interested in you and he likes you as a person, you are his favorite. Because he's looking at everyone, so he's talking to me. Some of the khutbah, when they speak, they either look to the floor or they just look at one person because they're so, terrified. They don't want to look around because, they're expecting me to make a mistake. Man, they will get me after salah. So what they do, they look at one person or they just look at one direction. Assalamu alaikum. Inshallah, we'll be talking about this boring topic. And you know what? I like this guy, but I hate you. No. Just look at everyone in the thing. Amr ibn al-As radiallahu anhu, he noticed this. He said the Prophet ﷺ used to look at people and look them in the eye, every single one of them. So much so that I thought I was actually his favorite because he was giving me attention, he was looking at me and So I came to him and said one day, do you like me better or you like Ali radiallahu anhu better? He said, Ali radiallahu anhu. Then he said, do you like me better or you like Umar radiallahu anhu? He said, Umar, I like Umar more. Then he said, do you like me or Abu Bakr? He said, I like Abu Bakr more. Do you like Uthman? And he mentioned the number of Sahaba, like 15 of them. So every time I asked him, do you love me better or that Sahabi better? So he would say the other Sahabi. So I wish I never asked him. Because I wish I stayed with this perception that I was his favorite. Because he was looking at us when he gave the talk. Also, what they call the diction. You change your style as you speak. So you are talking normally, but in some point you have to raise your voice or you have to lower your voice because the tone of your speech, so if people are asleep, they wake up. So say for example, if you say, I went to the house, I put the key in the door, I opened the door, I went inside, and the kids were playing with my pants, and they got the scissors and they cut the legs of my pants, and the food, they opened the fridge and all the food was on the floor. This is so boring because you're so monotone. But you have to raise your voice sometimes. Like I put the key in the door and I opened the door and I went inside and oh my God, my pants, they were playing with my pants, and I went to the kitchen and all the eggs were on the floor. Oh my God. Something like this. You see? Like when you, something is also very important when you speak is to use your body language, the facial expressions. When you open your eyes, like you say, I went inside the house and the food was in the floor. Oh my God, I didn't know what to, something like this. You open your mouth. Or I was standing there and I was going to invite my mother to come to the dinner next day, and my wife did like this. Yeah, this body language is very important. You don't have to say anything, but you say a lot of things with your hands and your face. And this is also is very important when you speak. You know, in the hadith, when the Prophet ﷺ was talking about different things, sometimes he used to draw on the sand, sometimes he used his fingers, like me and the person who takes care or the person who sponsors orphans were like this in Jannah. So he is using his body to express his feelings. Remember the story I mentioned, and I remember one time I was giving this talk, and I was talking about the technique of doing da'wah, and I said you have to do it with sincerity. And it's a very small story, but when I said it and I used my body language, and the people were laughing in the khutbah, and of course the old people were after me, they wanted to whatever. So I was saying, we're talking about doing da'wah for a good reason. You see, I was in one in the masajid, and they have a very big, parking lot. And after Isha, I was leaving the masjid. I have a couple of brothers with me. So we were leaving, and there is this Muslim brother who was standing with a non-Muslim lady in the parking lot in the back in the dark. So you heard the story before. So when they saw us coming, they didn't expect to see us. So when they saw us, the lady started to run in the streets, and the Muslim brother was standing like this. So I said, "What are you doing here?" He said, "You know what? I'm showing her the light." He's giving her da'wah. This is what he meant. So I said, "Why do you show her the light in the dark? Why are you standing in the dark? You can bring her to the masjid, we'll give her da'wah material, you know." He was not sincere. He just was having, whatever. He's doing it for the wrong reasons. You can say something sweet in the middle when you give a talk. You say a very interesting statistic. You give a short story, something, whatever. But don't be a clown. Some people turn the talk into stand-up comedy. They turn they give a talk about death, or what do you do, the etiquette of the graveyard. You know, brothers and sisters, wallahi, this is funny. We're talking about janazah. Do you know that funeral starts with fun? The word funeral starts with fun. So alhamdulillah, we have to be funny, we take the janazah, whatever, No. Because this is not the time to make fun. This is a serious thing. This is actually a short story that I gave at one of the funerals in Edmonton. And I said the story of Juha. He was sitting with his father and his mom in front of the house, and there was a janazah passing by. So the janazah was followed by the person's wife and children. So one of the children said, "Ya my father, oh my father, they are taking you to a place that has no food, that has no bed, that has no water, nothing." So Juha's son said, "Dad, are they taking him to our house? Because we don't have any of these things in our house." He said, no, they're taking him to the grave. So the point was, when you go to the grave, you are not taking anything with you. There's no food, nothing there. So make it sweet, but not too much sweet. When you recite Quran, in the talk, if you have to recite Quran, make sure you recite it in a beautiful voice. Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran in support of the point I just made, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ كَانَتْ لَهُمْ جَنَّاتُ الْفِرْدَوْسِ نُزُلًا. Something like this. So it is not like you are reciting a paper. Allah says in the Quran, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ كَانَتْ. Like this. No. You have to say it in a beautiful voice. You remember at Eid, when I gave the talk, and I said it's easier for some youth to memorize songs than to memorize Quran. And I said, when they listen to a song from Justin Bieber, for example, they pick it up very quick, they memorize it. But Surah Quran, oh my gosh, It's a short surah, but I can't. You love me, baby, I know you care, but I don't love you, it's a nightmare. Okay, so compare this to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says somewhere in the Quran, then you recite the ayah with a beautiful voice. Now you compare the lyrics of the song to the recitation of the Quran with a beautiful voice. Now it shows you the difference. You make a good point when you do this, right? So you have to make your recitation different. Also use authentic hadith, because some of the people, when they give a talk, they inject a lot of fabricated hadith because they are fancy. They are the people who love my talk because I'm giving this fancy hadith. Like some of the people would say, if you read a surah from the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you $10 million in Jannah. He will give you 10 palaces. He will give you this. He will give you that. But there is no authentic hadith. But they are just doing this to motivate you. But there is no such thing. So make sure you say authentic hadith. Also, when you give a talk about a problem, you have to give solutions at the end. Brothers and sisters, we have a problem with our youth in the community. Divorces are very high. The rates of divorces are very high in the community. Our youth are doing drugs. Whatever is doing this is selling haram things. We live in such a miserable community. Nobody is donating money to the masjid. The masjid is dirty. The hammamat are dirty. No one is coming to salah. So after Jum'ah, people say, we're not coming to this guy again because he makes us feel so horrible. There is nothing good about us. You listen to him for 5 minutes, you feel like you want to shoot yourself in the head. There is nothing good in our life. No, but if you talk about a problem, the youth, they do this, and these are the solutions. 1, 2, 3, you give practical solutions. A work plan for the audience. If they want to solve the problem, you give them solutions, and 1, 2, 3, 4. You need to do this, 1, 2, 3. If you have a problem memorizing the Quran, for example, then maybe you need to talk to a sheikh. You recite before a sheikh, recite your hifz in the salah, listen to a recorder, use your recitation in your salah when you lead. Something like you give them practical solutions. And give a lot of stories. This is something you notice in the Quran. Almost 50% of all the things in the Quran are stories. The story of Yusuf, Nuh, Musa, Ibrahim, they're all over the place. You read the seerah hadith from the Prophet ﷺ, there are so many stories. Some of the ulama, they used to say that al-qasas min junudillah. The stories are one of the soldiers of Allah because they go straight to the heart. I can talk to you for hours about something, but if I just sum up this, like when we spoke about ulu al-himma, aiming high and thinking big, I can talk to you for hours. But when I gave that little talk for 3-4 minutes about Muhammad ibn Abi Amir, you remember the story? I'm not going to say it again, but it's a very powerful story. It will sum up everything, and you make a very strong point when you give them a very strong story at the end, and also you give a summary. Inshallah, will be done in about 10 minutes. Now, we spoke about you as a speaker, and we spoke about your style. Now we'll talk about your audience. 3 things are involved. You, your style, and your audience. Number 1, you have to look at your audience. Yani say for example, if I'm giving a talk between Taraweeh and Ramadan, Salatul Taraweeh will start 11 o'clock, right? And Taraweeh takes about an hour. If I speak like in the middle of Taraweeh, there is no way in the world I can talk for half an hour. I have to speak only for 5 minutes. I have to make sure that it is very effective because I don't have a whole lot of time. But if we have a lot of time, then I can talk. You read the story of Yusuf alayhi salam fi Surah Yusuf. When they came to him with the 2 dreams, the 2 inmates, before he gave them the interpretation, a whole page, he's making da'wah to them. He's talking about something else. Because these people, they have nothing but time. Even if he gives them da'wah for a month, I ain't going nowhere. We have time, khalas, talk to us. So you have to pay attention to the audience. Also, when you give a story, make sure if you're talking to brothers or sisters or brothers and sisters, your stories have to be relevant to both. Tamam? Like say for example, if I give a talk about guile. Guile is some of the things that people do, smart things they do to outdo other people, outwit them. So if you give a story about a brother who outwitted his wife, it is important to give a story about a sister who outwitted her husband, to keep it balanced, or the sisters will be mad. And also, if you give a talk about, something, make sure you understand the background of your audience, if they are Muslim or non-Muslim. If I go to give a talk about Islam, say for example, if I'm invited by a church group to give a talk about Islam, I'm not going to use the same argument that I would use if I go to give a talk to atheists about Islam. It's a completely different subject. Two different arguments. So you don't use the same argument for different people. Otherwise, this will be like a doctor who is giving the same medicine to all of his patients. If you have a headache, I'm going to give you aspirin. If you Tylenol. If you have tumor, I'll give you aspirin, Tylenol. If you have a fever, Tylenol. If you have the kidney stones, Tylenol. This is not going to work. You will kill at least 70% of the people. Also, the audience, if they are young, maybe they are not educated or educated, you have to be careful when you talk to people. Because sometimes, and this is the problem, say for example with some of the Quran translations, they don't keep this in mind. They use very difficult words. Like I remember I was talking to Brother Anthony. I spoke to him about the translation project we're working on with Brother Abu Isa and Hisham and some of the brothers and sisters. He says, I'm using Yusuf Ali translation when I'm preaching to them. Thou, thine, maketh, giveth, all these things. So the inmates, he goes to the federal prisons to give talks to the inmates. So when he uses, they're happy when he's giving a talk, but as soon as he quotes from the Quran, they're sitting like this. What is he talking about? Because it's all English, very difficult words, they don't know what he's talking about. Even if you use this, it's a very good translation, but only for academics or someone, but not for this particular group. Interaction, make sure you ask the audience if they have a question, if they have a comment, something to keep them engaged. If you think they are bored, you spoke for 10, 15 minutes or 20 minutes, half an hour, you feel that they are bored, they are starting to look at their watches, to scratch their head or yawn, some of them start to leave, then maybe you need to give a short story, or maybe you need to cut the khutbah short, khalas, done. Some people, believe me, those who are prepared, you have seen a lot of speakers come to different places to give different talks. Those who are experts on the subject matter, they speak short. Those who are not prepared, they talk for too long. Why? Because they're not prepared, they don't have anything to say. They think, okay, I haven't said anything, maybe I need to tell them. This is why some of the speakers, you say to yourself, why is he jumping from one story to the other? He started by talking about Sahaba, about Hijrah, then he started to speak about the polar bear, then he started to speak about Hillary Clinton, then he's going to talk about Tim Horton. What is it? Because he doesn't have anything to say. This is why he's talking about everything, and his talk took an hour to finish. But if the Imam is focused, 10, 15 minutes, he should give you a crash course on what you need to know, and khalas. So this is the difference between a speaker who's prepared to speak and someone who's not prepared to speak. Also, if you are a good speaker, you will choose the topic very carefully. You know what the audience wants to listen to. Maybe because of the time. If it is the first day of Ramadan, you don't talk to them about Ashura. You don't talk about something. You have to talk about this topic because this is the topic of the hour. If something happened, something of interest to the community, you need to focus on this, something related to them. Say if I come here and give a khutbah about about penguins who live in the northern pole. Who cares? Who cares? Nobody cares, right? But if you speak about da'wah in the community, if you speak about elevating ourselves and uplifting our youth and our families, and how to stop fights in our homes, these are very important and crucial topics that everybody is willing to listen to. Taban, at the end, if it is not a khutbah, you open the door for questions and answers.